Welcome back, my furry friend lovers. How are we all doing today? For those of you new to my channel, I want to say welcome as well and thank you for joining us. This is Skelly by Nature. I am Skelly, and today I'm going to show you a little special treat for our dogs if you're looking for something new and very nutritional, but at the same time very cheap. So I'm one that, where I do make my dogs food, I'm always going through the meat aisle and looking for either specials or manager's specials or sales or anything like that. But every once in a while we come across something that's not always on the shelves. And so I was at the store the other day and they had a bunch of chicken gizzards. So I grabbed a whole bunch of packs of them because they're not usually there. The nice thing about chicken is the gizzards are actually one of the best parts of their meat. It offers a ton of vitamins and minerals, and it's loaded in protein. It's a good source of zinc and iron and B12. It's also, the other thing too is if you have a young dog or an older dog, the nice thing about the gizzards is they're loaded in glucosamine, which helps rebuild their bone structure or build their bone structure. So if you have, say, something like a puppy lab or a baby shepherd or something like that may suffer from hip dysplasia later on in their life, one thing that you can do to help possibly eliminate it is by giving them glucosamine early in their growth. That way they grow strong muscles and strong bones. And it's also great for, like I said, with older dogs, their arthritis and their pains that they suffer. So that's the one nice thing about the gizzards. The other thing too is they're really cheap. And that's the nice thing about them is you can buy, I paid, they had them on a special. I paid $1.10 for a pound. So that makes it really a good deal, considering, we're paying 3 to 4 pounds for the other stuff. So the one thing that I like to do with them is I'm going to show you multiple ways of preparing these for your dog. So the first way that I'm going to show you right now is I'm going to show you how to make a dehydrated treat. Okay, these dehydrated treats are really good, again, for your dog. And the other thing too is if this is something new for your dog, again, give it to them, watch them, make sure they're chewing them, make sure they're not just swallowing them, and also be aware that when you do use gizzards, you need to keep it down to no more than 20% of what their diet is. And that's partly due to the high levels of cholesterol they have. So keep that in mind as well. So let's get right into the dehydration process. So the first thing you want to do is when you open your package is give them a good wash. I've already done that. And then I towel dry them. I use some towels. And I just take them, dump them on the towel, dry them up. And as I'm taking them out, I'm cutting them into proper sizes, okay? So I cut 2 different sizes, one for my dog Tier and one for my little boy Bobo. So I cut any big pieces and cut them into small sizes. I typically, go real small, like maybe an inch or so. And then keep in mind as well, they're going to shrink a little bit when they get dehydrated, so keep that in mind as well. So here's what I like to do once you have them done, once they're washed and dried and you have them cut and they're ready for dehydration. We can do this 2 ways. I'm going to be using my air fryer, and because that does have a dehydrating setting, but you can also do this in your stove as well. So I'm going to tell you, what to do when you do put it in your stove. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay these out on, I've got 2 trays here for my dehydration. And I'm going to lay these out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, and once they're laid out, I'm going to sprinkle them with a little bit of Italian seasoning. That helps flavor them a little bit, as well as give my dogs a little extra vitamins and minerals from the seasoning. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put them in the dehydrator. Now, if you're going to do this and you're going to say put them in your stove, you can put them on a cookie sheet, put them on, lay it with some parchment paper, lay them out, sprinkle whatever seasoning you want on it. Oregano is another one that you can go straight oregano. Do a little bit at a time if your dog's not used to oregano. And oregano adds a nice little flavor to it as well, so that's another option for you as well. And then when you put them in your stove, what you're going to do is you're going to put them in your stove for try to get them down to the lowest setting. My stove actually does go down to 175. That's about the lowest it goes. And so I'll do that. If I do it in the stove, I'll do 175, and I let it go for about 9 to 10 hours, and let that just kind of slowly dehydrate them. The setting in here is preset, so that I'm just going to go ahead and preset it, and then mine actually shuts off automatically. So typically with the air fryer, it's the same thing. The air fryer, I think, is a 155, and it goes for about 10 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare these. I'm going to go ahead and put them in, get them started, and then the next thing I'm going to show you is another way of doing it, where we're going to boil it and then cook it. And that one there, I actually use it when I do it that way. Once they're done, I actually use pieces and put it into their dog food as I'm making their dog food, as just an extra protein added into their dog food on top of, whether I'm using the ground turkey or the ground chicken. So I like to use it as just an additive into their regular dog food. So let me go ahead and do this, and then I'm going to come back to you later on and show you how to do the next setup. All right? So let me go ahead and do this. Okay, are we ready for the second way that we can prepare these gizzards? So the first step, again, we're going to do the same thing that we did earlier, where you're gonna want to wash and dry, and cut, if you want, cut any big pieces. I'm not overly worried about too many of these big pieces, because I am going to kind of grind this down a little bit later once they're done. But if you get a small dog or something like that, cut them up. And so the first step that we're going to do is we're going to take 5 cups of water, and we're going to put it in a large pot. Get that to a boil. As you can see, mine's boiling, and get the nice steam going here, adding some moisture to my house. And now I got my 1 pound of gizzards, and as you can see, I did what was left over of the herbs that I used when I did the dehydrating. I just stuffed them in the gizzard. So I'm going to pour that right in. And what we're going to do is, you want to make sure that they're all covered. And we're going to get this back to a boil again. And once we get this back to a boil, we're going to turn this down to a simmer. And we're going to let this simmer for roughly 20 minutes or so. And once that's done, what we're going to do is we're going to remove them from the water, and then we're going to put them off to the side and let them cool. And then what we're going to do next is, as they're sitting there cooling, we're going to set our oven to 300 degrees. And we're going to let the oven preheat as they cool, and we'll go on. So I'm going to let this get back to a boil, and I'm going to turn it down to a simmer, and I will let this go for 20 minutes, like I said, and I'll be back, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so we finished with the simmering, and as you can see, I've already drained mine, and they've been sitting off to the side a little bit, letting them cool. And I'm going to take my oven, and we're going to put this to 300 degrees, like I said. We're going to start preheating this. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, like I said, this is sitting there cooling a little bit. So the next thing that I like to do is, I'm going to just pour these out, is we're gonna let this sit and cool a little bit. Get them cooled down. Get the oven set. Next thing that you want to do is get yourself a bag. I've got this freezer bag here. And what I did is I threw a little bit of, I'm using grapeseed oil. You can go ahead and use any other kind of oil, whether it's an olive oil or something like that. And then what I like to do is I take these and I'm going to throw these right in the bag because I like to coat them a little bit with some oil. One, a little oil is always good for our pups, good for their coat, good for their skin. And I'm gonna zip this right up, and I'm just gonna kind of shake this around, and I'm giving them just a little, like I said, a little coating with some olive oil, olive oil or grapeseed oil, anything you want. The other thing it's gonna do is also help me from, they're not gonna stick to my pan, which isn't a major concern, but so now I've got this nice and coated, okay, and I'm gonna take my pan. Now, some people like to lay this out with parchment paper. That's fine. You can go ahead and do it that way as well. So I'm just gonna throw these on my pan, and when you do this, what you're gonna want to do is kind of separate them, get some nice space between all of the gizzards. That way they get cooked fairly well. So I got them nice and well separated. And so now what we're going to do is, once the stove's ready, we're going to put them in our stove, and we're going to want to bake them for about an hour. Okay? Halfway through so what I'm going to do is I set my timer for 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, I'm going to come over, I'm going to pull it out, I'm going to kind of give them a little toss and flip, and then I'm going to put it back in for another half hour. And then what's going to happen is when that hour is done, what I like to do is I just come over, shut the stove off, and then I let them stay inside the stove and let them kind of sit and help them dry a little bit better. So I'll leave them in the stove for another hour or two until the stove actually cools right down. And so when that's done, I'm gonna come back and we can close this out. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you guys in a couple hours. Okay, so now as you can see, I have the pieces, and they're all nice and dark, and they're kind of they're hard a little bit hard on the outside, and you can kind of squeeze them, some of the pieces, and they're still a little soft on the inside. But as they sit, they harden up a little bit more. Okay, so now it's been a few hours later, and the ones that I dehydrated are done. And as you can see, these are done. These are a lot more dry than the ones that we did inside the oven. So like I said, the ones I do in the oven, I like to add to their food as a supplement or an extra protein. These here I use as treats. So a lot of times, and they are dehydrated. So what you can do with these is, again, just get yourself a little container, throw them in a container, and you can put those in your fridge or have them out or whatever and give them to your dogs as treats. They're good for 2 weeks at least. So I hope this was a very informative video for you all. I hope you guys all give this a try. It's a great cheap treat for your puppy, for your dogs. And I get a puppy right here. And so I hope you all enjoyed the video. If so, do me and little Teddy a favor and hit that like button down below. There'll be more videos coming up of all kinds of dog treats and dog foods. I got a couple more recipes that people are asking for, so I will be doing some more recipes The other thing too is share this with other dog lovers. And the more we can get out, the better off for everyone and our dogs. And as well as share this on your media posts and stuff like that. And if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel and you can see more of Teddy in the future. And until the next video, me and Teddy say goodbye. Say goodbye. Yes, goodbye everyone.